Thank you, Teyonah, so much for taking the time to talk about WandaVision. So let me ask you this, because I know obviously when you sign on to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know that whatever you're playing, it's going to probably manifest in different projects. But I kind of want the concept of this and the execution of this show is so wild. I wonder if you could give me your honest reaction when they first sort of explained what the show was.
If you want complete honesty, when they first explained what the show was, it went right over my head. I will tell you, I was so overwhelmed. They brought me to the actual studio, and I got to go into their war room, so to speak, where they had their ideas and visions and storyboards all on the wall. And I met with Matt Shackman and Jack Schaffer and Mary Lavanos and Kevin Feige. And when I walked in the room, I was so overwhelmed and excited because I had gotten the role like 3 months prior and no one said anything after that. I didn't hear about it. Nobody said anything about it. And so I'm just trying to keep it to myself and not say anything. And then to walk into this war room with all of the ideas and see my face, like renderings of my face on the wall with their ideas, I just was so overwhelmed. I burst into tears. So I'm crying and trying not to cry while they're explaining what the show is. And I'm like, eventually I couldn't hold it anymore. I'm like, and I just started crying and they're like, oh, okay. So I didn't hear anything.
All right, so you sort of validated them instantly with your tears, which is kind of cool. So let me ask you this: what is before the boot camp that they did for you guys, the sitcom boot camp? What was sort of your introduction to classic sitcoms before you got this gig, if you can recall?
Oh, I can recall. I love Lucy. I would watch that. It would come on Nick at Night and I was supposed to be asleep, but I would stay up with it really low in my room watching I Love Lucy reruns all the time. And actually a lot of Bewitched as well. But I just was obsessed with Lucy and the whole cast in that show. And so I definitely was fond of sitcoms. I've never actually gotten to do one in my career. So this was really fun to go through a boot camp, learn all the history, and then to execute. So that was really cool.
So the other thing, because there are so many layers, and I feel like I'm tap dancing around a landmine because we don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but was the part of, precisely as a Puerto Rican, I can really appreciate sort of how your character's participation sort of subverts the history of African-American characters in sitcoms of that era. Was that sort of enjoyable and sort of like subverting and pushing that boundary while you also get to do cool stuff that's going to connect with other stuff further down the line?
I mean, yes. And I appreciate you for noticing. That was certainly a conversation that me and Matt and Jack had where I said, you know, in these sitcoms, a lot of times you didn't see people of color. And we all agreed that that's not something you don't want to stick them in like, oh, just fit in where you get in. Like, no, let's be very specific and particular about who this person is. And if they were in this world, how it would feel. And maybe it would feel like everyone else and maybe it wouldn't. And that's what's interesting about it. But definitely that was a conversation that we all had and agreed that, yeah, let's be true and honest about all of it and see and just tell that story. So I'm glad you know.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy that. So my time's up. Stay safe wherever you are, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Juan.